Okay, so a lot of, I guess, discussion, whether you frame it from an ESG perspective or just general talent acquisition and talent retention standpoint, a lot of focus, a lot of people say that younger people, and you're still a young professional, perceive purpose as being a very important part of their career. And the way that I used to frame it when I was younger was I didn't want my sole purpose to like be to make rich people richer, right? And that was a very, very important driving factor for me as a young lawyer. I'm just curious from your perspective, not to speak for everyone that's your age, but do you see that as an important part of your career trajectory and like the choices that you have made and the choices that you will make going forward?
Absolutely. I think it's a fact now. It's not just a trend, but it's a fact that generations these days, young generations, care about purpose and the sense of purpose embedded in their work. So instead of looking at work and life as separate matters where you can get the paycheck, pay your bills, and then find purpose in life, the younger generation are definitely more looking forward to opportunities where all of those values can be combined. So personally as well, that's exactly the reason why I'm here, first of all. And at FSI, because I'm in this position to arrange a lot of workshops, engaging private sector professionals, including young and seasoned professionals, regardless of which level you're talking to, everybody's talking about how do I make use of the time that I'm spending already at work and at the same time do something socially impactful. So I would like to share, recently at Foundation for Shared Impact, we ran a workshop, a roundtable discussion workshop, to engage a group of professionals to talk about talent development. We had a panel discussion where we invited an HR professional, learning and development professional, and a young representative, young generation representative, talk a little bit about talent development. And the number one issue that was frequently brought up again and again was how we can make use of these meaningful opportunities and purpose-driven opportunities at work to retain talent.
Yeah.
So this shows that to retain good talent, you need to provide purpose-driven opportunities at work.
Yeah.
And young people these days look for those opportunities, actively search for opportunities that will make their life more purposeful at work as well.
Great. Okay, so that's really interesting, and I think that kind of plays out with what I've seen at being at Hong Kong U for the past 15 years. But I want to push back on that a little bit because I'm not sure I necessarily agree that it's a generational thing. In other words, I don't think like it's just young people who care about this. And I think that your work at Foundation for a Shared Impact, we identify many people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond that are also looking for opportunities to kind of connect with social impact, either in their personal life or professional life. So maybe can you kind of speak about that as well? And like, what are, again, I mean, it's not just young people that want to make a difference, I don't think.
I agree with that 100%. It's not just limited to the young generations. So at Foundation for Shared Impact, we run a program called Community Connections. The Community Connections program is where we link the private sector and the social sector. From the private sector professionals' perspective, through FSI, they're getting access to these opportunities to engage with the communities, give back to the communities, and find purpose in life and work. So we have been running this Community Connections program for a number of years. We have hundreds of professionals who went through this program to get access to skills-based volunteering, one-off impact jam kind of workshops, or other long-term engagements. And we always hear testimonials from them and interviews through case stories and interviews. We always hear testimonials from the engaged professionals, how these small, even if small, opportunities make them want to stay at their firm because it is through their corporate firm that they got this opportunity to work with FSI.
Yeah.
There's actually an interview that we did with a previous Community Connections professional who was in a skills-based volunteering engagement, who explicitly told us that even if it was not for Community Connections, he would have simply left the firm. So it is meaningful to not just the younger generation, but overall, all the multi-generational workforce. As part of Community Connections program at FSI, we run what we call an Impact Jam workshop. This is a way where working professionals in the private sector can access an open gate to work with the communities, mostly the underserved communities. It could be, for example, the ethnically diverse community. It could be under-resourced youth. But the professionals that we work with make use of these impact gem opportunities to reach a group of people that they have never reached. So we repeatedly hear testimonials from working professionals, regardless of which age group they come from, them coming to us and say these experiences that are socially impactful help them get out of their bubble. And we hear this all the time, how important this experience of reaching out to a different community that they have not been in touch with, and to do it in a meaningful way, provides them a lot of purpose, sense of purpose, fulfillment, and they feel like, oh, I've learned something that I can even bring back to my own workplace. And that sense of purpose and fulfillment that people feel is not just for the younger generation. It's really for the entire workforce.
Yeah. Okay, so that sounds great, but it's also extremely counterintuitive, and to be frank, kind of goes against the last 50 years of business school education. All right, so let me give you a couple of examples. Number one, that the sole purpose of a company should be to pursue, profit and therefore the benefit of the shareholders. In fact, in that article, Professor Friedman even said that the CSR was effectively a tax, an illegal tax, and it was, inherently bad or evil because it was taking money away from the shareholders, et cetera. Number two, the idea that in order to retain talent, we want to give them opportunities outside of the organization. Number three, the idea that what will inspire and really incentivize hard work is giving them more uncompensated work, right? And I mean, there's so many things that if you were just to look at this from a straight kind of Econ 101, look at this empirically perspective, it shouldn't work. And yet, I think anecdotally, yourself, myself, but we're seeing this across the entire spectrum, I think it is shown to work. And I just want to kind of go one step further and say, it is kind of the theory or the thesis of this particular course that ESG as a concept or in terms of the acronym ESG may not be used in 5 years. But it's not like a box ticking type of exercise. It's more of a theoretical framework through which we can create sustainable, long-term profitable companies. And so it kind of sounds like what you're saying is companies are, from an S perspective in particular, they're often better off by diverting attention away from their core business goals and giving their employees opportunities to do these completely unrelated, uncompensated, non-revenue generating things. And that's actually beneficial to them. And I'll take it one step further, because if I understand correctly, and I do, because like I said, I'm a director in the company, companies pay for these opportunities. So actually pay FSI to pull their employees away from their core business. None of that makes any sense, right? Explain.
So I think if we look at things in the traditional capitalism structure, right? Companies are made to generate profit. And to do that, you need to, I guess, maximize the efficiency or the productivity of employees. And that's usually calculated in numbers. So a lot of the things that we just discussed are actually contextual, I feel like. And talent is a pool of people, right? So to develop talent who would be the contributor of a company, we do need to find out what's the most effective way to drive their productivity and retain them in the company. So I would almost say that it's like a better capitalism.
The next version,
the next version of
whatever
capitalism.
it is, 3, 4.0.
Yeah, exactly. No matter which number we were tagging, it is a better form of capitalism. And if we look at the experiences, because you mentioned our corporate clients and the partners that we work with, they come to us because they know that developing their talent, making sure that they're acknowledging their needs to have a sense of purpose at work is not detrimental to their productivity, but it's like a synergy. It's not counteractive, but it's helpful.
Yeah.
And it contributes to increase productivity. So at Foundation for a Shared Impact, we've repeatedly quoted a term called strategic side gig. So at Foundation for a Shared Impact, we frequently use the term strategic side gig when we reach out to our corporate working professionals and corporate partners. So this term, it's also quoted in Harvard Business Review, is a term that we use, that we borrow to explain how people can work at their daytime job and also have a strategic side gig without having to dump or neglect the daytime job to have something that's socially impactful and personally meaningful to them.
Yeah.
And this is really the actual practices and the actual social impact stories that we've been hearing through our community connections partners. People do not simply neglect or set a part of, people do not simply neglect their daytime job or choose to turn away from it because they're doing something additional that's socially beneficial. It actually comes back all together when forming one person's life. I have this work that I'm passionate about. At the same time, I can also make use of the time that I spend at work to do something socially impactful. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
I think one term that we also frequently use is how giving back and productivity at work is not a zero-sum game. So instead of thinking about this as I'm plus this and minus one kind of concept, you can do both better by making your work more socially impactful.
Yeah.
And that's especially why I feel like the term, I think why especially skills-based volunteering is such a powerful and impactful way to give back, because you are making use of what you're learning and what you're nurturing at work, and part of that knowledge and resources get shared with other members of the community that need such resources in a socially impactful way.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those that are not familiar with the term strategic side gig, this is one that we use quite a lot, again, borrowed from an HBR article from many years ago. And it's where you strategically establish an opportunity for some type of community service. And it is, as you said, a very key opportunity for organizations if they set up these opportunities well for their staff to have a broader sense of purpose, to develop camaraderie among their teams if they do it together, to establish their skills, expand their network, have leadership opportunities, all in a way that is completely risk-free to their organization. And so that's a big part of what we do in terms of helping them understand. Again, from an S perspective, the social perspective, again, it's often couched in DEI and all these very important things. But a lot of it is effectively connecting your teams, your organization, your corporate purpose to the broader community and the various stakeholders in their community. So to that end, the name of the organization is Foundation for Shared Impact. What is shared impact then, and how does that relate to ESG or like corporate success?
So the name Foundation for Shared Impact is based on our shared impact philosophy. Our shared impact philosophy is basically our way of storytelling that when we bring in people together, and when we say people, we're not speaking about just 100 corporate professionals. We're talking about youth. We're talking about educators. We're talking about just the general public, the funders, the volunteers. When we bring in people together and we share resources, we share knowledge, then we can collectively bring much bigger shared social impact than one organization or one individual can do. And that is essentially why all of the programs that we run, including community connections, we always bring these different layers of society together to do something good.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go back a little bit and talk about the example of an impact jam that I mentioned before. So an impact jam workshop where we bring working professionals from the from the private sector to come and meet the community members who need more resources and knowledge. So to give you an example, we recently had an impact jam session where we had a group of corporate professionals come in and they work with youth that FSI engages from ethnically diverse backgrounds based in Hong Kong who are in need of more career guidance, soft skills, communications guidance. We brought the youth in and we gave each group a project to work on uplifting under-resourced entrepreneurs based in Hong Kong.
That's great.
So this shows like a really great example of they're working together, they're engaging with different communities, we're bringing people together, they're each making use of their skills and resources, but at the same time, the ultimate output of that collaboration is also extremely beneficial to the community. And this is the framework that we use in multiple different contexts. This is how we bring people together to create that shared impact that we always envision.
So if you were speaking to an executive out there and they hear about that Impact Jam or one of the other types of offerings that FSI or other similar organizations provide, is that something where the private sector employees are coming in and then just sharing their knowledge, and it's one of those things where they can just kind of download their information and leave, or do you see this as mutually beneficial to them as well?
Mutually beneficial, for sure. And I don't also see this as a one-off engagement. It's always a journey for the corporate professional. Some people come back to us and say, I want to engage, I want to do more.
Yeah.
It could be a 3-month engagement, it could be a 6-month engagement, to I might want to be able to join a charity board.
Yeah.
So if I had a chance to talk to an executive at a corporate to talk about these engagement opportunities, I wouldn't ask the executive to imagine this in a way where their employees are giving knowledge or resources one way to the communities in need,
Yeah.
but it's more of a reciprocal practice where the employees go explore a broader world, connect with the communities, exchange knowledge, resources, and come back to the workplace to make use of all these experiences and opportunities that were not that accessible just in office.
Yeah, and I can definitely say from my own personal experience, both in the private sector when I was an attorney and now as a professor at HKU, when I was a lawyer, I learned so much through my pro bono engagements. They were not only incredibly interesting, things that way beyond the scope of that I would normally be involved in my kind of day-to-day drudgery, which was good work. I liked my clients and stuff, but it was like we got to do such a variety of different things that it was really energizing. I was able to take risks that I otherwise wouldn't be able to take because they're clients and you want to serve them well, but they're not paying clients and they wouldn't be able to afford any lawyers like us. And so it was an opportunity for us to take some risks on their behalf. And now that I'm at HKU, obviously from an academic perspective, we have one of the great blessings of not having a 9-to-5 job, which means I do have a lot of time, discretionary time that I can use. And I use that time with social impact organizations like FSI. And I can definitely say over the past 10 years, I have absolutely learned as much, if not more, in the previous decade when I was going to school and full-time and working in the private sector full-time. So I think it's a really invaluable opportunity that we hope organizations out there will really try to latch onto more and even encourage their younger employees, especially people they really want to develop and retain. It's not a risky thing to push them towards these opportunities. It actually is an opportunity for, again, retaining and developing the best young talent.
Exactly.